Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to go over something that has been requested and asked for quite some time, and it is the beginner's guide to Chipp Zanuff for Guilty Gear Strive. Chipp has been my main character in Guilty Gear for well over 10 years, from competitive play to casual play, you name it. I've been there and done that with Chipp, including high placements across many events in using Chipp. So in this video, I'm going to be detailing an overview of Chipp, his normals, and a basic strategy to help you guys get on your way in learning Chipp for Guilty Gear Strive. So that being said, let's go on ahead and get right to it, and let's learn about the speedster ninja, Chipp Zanuff. So before we continue, I want to open with this. One of the biggest things that is very important to understand about Chipp is the mindset to have while playing him. When you begin playing Chipp, it will be very easy to get discouraged due to how quickly a game can end should you make a set number of small mistakes. On the flip side of things, you're equipped with some of the strongest tools in the game, along with speed to overcome obstacles that other characters cannot. You have to grasp that every single game that you play, you're potentially at an HP deficit, and at any given time, you have to cycle through all of your options to get the win. It can be very difficult in some cases, because when you see your character dying really quickly, you know, it's very discouraging to see your HP just drain like that and you just lose games off of like straight random hits. I'll be honest with you, that's just something you're gonna have to deal with along the way with learning Chipp, so just keep that in mind. As a quick reminder, please note that I will be using the number notation on the numpad on your keyboard, as this will be a lot easier for following along. I'll provide an example here for you guys to take a look at very briefly before we continue. So let's talk about Chipp's normals. Alright, so to kick off the normal section, let's start with his standing normals. I'm going to start with 5P. 5P starts up in 3 frames and is Chipp's fastest normal on startup. This is great as an interruption tool on defense in case people are trying to tick throw you or try to re-pressure. It can be used in conjunction with Red Roman Cancel to turn a little punish into a big punish. And can also be used as a situational anti-air in certain situations. Next up on standing normals, we have 5K. This move starts up in 6 frames. It's one of Chipp's best approach tools. It chains into itself and can gatling into 2K and 2D, or it can be all done together in one sequence as a combo or pressure. This normal is a great counter poke to lows in various normals due to its speed, and in addition to that, raising Chipp's hurt box over low attacks. Close slash starts up at 7 frames, and it's a great normal to start pressure with when up close from knockdowns or for re-pressure whenever you're pressuring your opponent. You'll mostly be using this when you establish your pressure game and you condition your opponent. Far slash. Far slash starts up in 9 frames, and much like 5K, you can use this as yet another way to start your offense, but from a further distance. Far slash will be one of your main initiation tools for pressure because of its speed in conjunction to Chipp's overall movement speed as well. So essentially, because Chipp's very fast, it makes it a lot easier for you to approach with this tool. Next up we have 5H. 5H starts up at 11 frames. It's a great counter poke in neutral from many different ranges. It's a great counter hit tool for stopping neutral approaches. It's also a fantastic anti-air that carries over the high counter properties, which means you can get a lot of damage off of this when done correctly. And lastly, 5H is a great media attack against the opponent's wake up. So if your opponent is waking up pressing buttons, throwing, you can use this tool to stop those options Keep in mind that if they do use a reversal that you can get hit, as 5H has no invincibility frames. Next up we have 5D. On single press it's 20 frame startup. On full charge it's 28 frames. This move deals a lot of damage on full charge when you launch and go for your air combo. Essentially this is a universal overhead for Guilty Gear, and you can use this whenever you catch your opponent sleeping at the wheel. Alright, and next up we have 6P. 6P starts up in 9 frames. 6P is your go-to anti-air for most, if not all, situations. This can also be used as a great frame trap tool in pressure to catch your opponents pressing buttons during your offense. On counter hit, it causes ground tumble and it gives you a hard knockdown. So be sure to make use of this tool because it is a very strong one for your arsenal. Next up we have 6K at 20 frame startup. This is Chipp's command overhead. It is invincible to throws due to Chipp being airborne. It's a very strong option in conjunction with Red Roman Cancel to continue pressure and or score, confirm, and get yourself some big damage. And lastly, for standing normals, we have 6H. 6H starts up in 17 frames, and this is Chipp's maximum damage starter from a counter hit. And it's usually one of the enders of choices to go for whenever you are doing wall break combos. It's also great for whiff punishing moves like Volcanic Viper or Vapor Thrust for big damage. Despite its speed, it can also be used as anti-air to catch air dashes and or bad jumps for big damage as well. So be sure to fish for this on the occasion. Next up we have Chipp's crouching normals. We're going to start with 2P. 2P starts up in 5 frames. Now this move is not as fast as 5P, but it still serves 2 major purposes. One, it can be used as an interruption tool just like 5P despite its speed. And in addition to that, it can also be used for tick throw situations whenever you are starting offense. So be sure to keep your opponents thinking and guessing with tick throws in 2P. 2K is the next normal we have here, and this move is also 5 frames. It's a standard low with very short range. Now there's not too much to say here about 2K, but it does serve its purpose as a low starter, as it does Gatling into 2D to score knockdowns. Next up we have 2S, starting up at 10 frames. This in my opinion is Chipp's best initiation tool overall for starting pressure. This tool also has a unique property where you can whiff cancel into 2H, making it hard to whiff punish at times. In addition, it can be used to low profile in some cases to allow 2H to punish aerial attacks. This move can also combo into itself on crouching counter hits, which is great for converting in counter hit situations. Next up we have 2H. 2H starts up at 12 frames. Now it's a slow anti-air, but it yields very high rewards on counter hit. This is by far one of his best frame trap tools, especially in the corner, where a Chipp can actually convert for very big damage. It can be used as a situational counter poke in some scenarios on offense. And lastly, from his crouching normals, we have 2D. 2D starts up in 10 frames, and it is a very fast, long-range sweep that is a great whiff punish tool that leads to Chipp's knockdown game. In some cases, you may opt to use this move a lot more than not because of its range and the ability to score knockdowns. Keep in mind that Chipp's mix-up game can start from this normal, so be sure to learn how to use this for whiff punishment. Next, we have Chipp's jumping normals. Jump Punch is the first up on our list, and it is 5 frames. It is a self-chainable, short-range normal that can be used as a quick air-to-air. This move cannot be jump cancelled or instant air dash cancelled, nor can it Gatling into other normals. This move, for the most part, serves its purpose, but that's pretty much about as far as it goes. Next up, we have Jump Kick. Jump Kick starts up in 6 frames, and this, in my honest opinion, is by far Chipp's best air-to-air attack, as this can lead into air dash conversions on hit, or not just you getting conversions, but you can also continue your pressure should they block. One of the greatest things about this normal is that it can also be gatlinged into J2K for combos or to maintain pressure. So be sure to learn how to use this normal. Very, very important for Chipp's air-to-air game. Next up, we have Jump Slash. Jump Slash starts up in 9 frames. This move crosses up fairly well and is also air dash cancelable and also jump cancelable as well. This is one of your main cross-up tools, so be sure to learn how to use this normal. It's also a great way to initiate pressure from certain situations, barring how you combo your opponent. Next we have Jump H. Jump H is also 9 frame startup, and this essentially is one of your main jump in attacks for Chipp. This move can hit twice and has very good cross-up potential as well. It can be jump cancelled and air dash cancelled as well, for creating tricky mix-up situations from single jump attacks. Jump Dust. Jump Dust starts up in 8 frames, and it is a fairly strong jump in with great counter hit potential. This is used as one of your main knockdown enders from your air combos and wall break combos as well. It can be jump cancelled and air dash cancelled, just like every one of his other air normals as well. This is one of the moves I would honestly say you should definitely get familiar with, as between this and Jump H, these are 2 of your main jump in attacks. Lastly, from his jump normals, we have J2K. J2K hails at 16 frames, and quite frankly, Chipp's dive kick is easily one of his best jump in attacks currently in Strive. Essentially, if I'm to be completely honest, this is essentially the God button when leaving the ground. It's an overhead dive kick that hits multiple times, and if the opponent jumps into it at the start of it, it will do a lot of damage. It's also great for stalling your jumps to bait anti-air attempts, so be sure to get familiar with this button, as you will be using this quite a bit in your matches. So first up on the list we have Alpha Blade Horizontal. Alpha Blade Horizontal can be done in the air and on the ground, and has 29 frames worth of startup. This is Chipp's grounded cross-up move. Despite its speed, it's a fairly strong cross-up option, especially after a knockdown. This is great to keep your opponents guessing on knockdowns, so be sure to make use of this move whenever you can. In addition to all that, you can hold forward or the punch button, wall run whenever you're close to a wall, to create new mix-up and creative situations. Alpha Blade Diagonal. Alpha Blade Diagonal is 24 frame startup on the ground and 37 frame startup while in the air. Much like the horizontal, as I mentioned already, you can go with this move in the air and on the ground. The grounded version has better startup and is great for pressure and mixing up your opponents during pressure. The aerial version is used for mostly escaping the corner and or creating different types of anti-air baiting situations. The Diagonal Alpha Blade is a very integral part of his combo game, so be sure to get used to that. Keep in mind he also retains his aerial options, so he can still air dash and double jump and or throw attacks from the grounded version. Much like Horizontal Alpha Blade, you can also hold forward or the kick button to wall run whenever you're close to a wall. Keep in mind that in the corner, this move does change. When your opponent's back into the corner and Chipp is facing the wall, when you use this move, Chipp will always bounce back away from the wall and will not cross up. Next we have Beta Blade. At 7 frames, this move can be done in both the air and the ground. This is essentially Chipp's reversal option that is strike invincible. Use this move with caution, as if it gets blocked, unfortunately, Chipp will explode. Use your reversal very wisely, you guys. Keep in mind, you want to try to use this reversal while you have meter. If your opponent doesn't have any meter, then it might be okay to go for it, but as always, use your best judgment. Gamma Blade. Gamma Blade is 25 frame startup, and essentially Chipp sends a clone that will attack the opponent. This is a very good tool once you've conditioned your opponent, as the move is actually +6 on block. Additionally, it's +9 frames on hit, allowing you to link normals on hit, such as Bar Slash. Unfortunately, Chipp's clone is actually an extension of him, and should the clone get hit, Chipp takes damage. Be sure to use this move with caution, and make sure that you condition your opponents correctly before taking advantage of this move and its plus frames. So next up, we have Chipp's, what's known as Chipp's Rekka series. If you're not familiar with the Rekka series, it is essentially a string of attacks that are chained together that are used to create pressure from special moves. And the first move from his Rekka series is Resho. Resho starts up in 13 frames, and this is essentially Chipp's main combo tool and safe string ender. Great thing about this move is it has follow-ups, as mentioned before, so you can use that to trick up your opponents and frame trap them. Not only that, but it's also a safe poke option to condition and pressure your opponent, or it can be used as a long-range punish versus moves with very long recovery. All follow-ups with Chipp's Rekka series can be cancelled into themselves on whiff, hit, and or block. You may also input the Rekkas as fast or slow to get different timings to throw off your opponent. Next up in the Rekka series is Rokusai. Rokusai is a downward kick that hits low, and it's the first follow-up to Resho. As mentioned before, you can use this to frame trap your opponent when they try to press buttons after your initial Rekka pressure, starting with Resho, or if they try to jump out. Use your best judgment, and be sure to feel out the situations whenever you decide to go for this move. It is still safe on block, but is actually a lot more negative, so be sure to feel out the situation when you decide to go for this follow-up. Last up on the Rekka Tree series is Kensou. Kensou is Chipp's overhead option from his Rekka series. It's a flip kick that hits overhead. This can be done from either Resho or Rokusai. This move is somewhat slow and can be punished, for the most part, on reaction. Now, despite it being punishable on reaction, if you do manage to get this to connect, you can deal some pretty big damage. So be sure to practice combos from the starter. Lastly, keep in mind that Kensou is unsafe on block. If you are uncertain about this move and you decide to use it during pressure, be sure to have Red Roman cancel ready to cancel out to either continue pressure or to escape the situation. Next up, we have Chipp's command grab, Genrozan. Genrozan starts up in 27 frames, and this move deals a lot of damage. And with Red Roman cancel, it can lead to even bigger damage. It's strong as a melee attack, as it does beat wake-up Shoryukens such as Volcanic Viper and Vapor Thrust. Conditioning. Be sure to read the temperament of your opponent and make sure that you've conditioned them enough with your Rekka pressure before you decide to use this move. And while Genrozan is very strong, keep in mind to mix up your normal throws with Genrozan to keep your opponent on their toes. Next up, we have Chipp's Shuriken. Shuriken starts up at 22 frames. Shuriken is essentially Chipp's zoning tool. Shuriken has a pretty useful angle for zoning characters who have very weak mobility, such as Nagaryuki or Potemkin. Unfortunately, your opponents can actually hit the Shuriken away with any active hitbox move to nullify it. However, it is very useful when used with PRC to provide yourself some cover while you're attacking your opponent. So be sure to sit in training mode and figure out more creative ways to utilize this tool. And lastly, we have Chipp's wall run. You can manually run on the wall outside of the Alpha Blade attacks by essentially jumping towards the wall and air dashing towards the wall. As long as you're holding forward, Chipp will run across the wall. Now during the wall run, you have access to pretty much all your normals on the wall, and it leads to very interesting combos when used correctly. While running on the wall, you can press back or 4, or down or 2 to get off the wall. Both of these have different angles which you can use to either A, trick up your opponent for mix-ups, or B, just escape the wall to bait something out in the first place to keep Chipp safe. Okay, now that we've covered the special moves, we're going to cover the last two moves here, and these are his supers, and we're going to start with Zanzeiroga. Zanzeiroga is a great way to cash out your damage when you want to close out while you have meter for a super. Unfortunately, Zanzeiroga does not break the wall, it does return to neutral. However, you are granted fairly decent plus range afterwards for a mix-up. One of the greatest additions to Zanzeiroga is the ability to do this in the air, so it makes cashing out your damage from a wall combo so much greater. Lastly, we have Chipp's final super, Banki Nesai. Banki does have a little bit of projectile invincibility frames, so you can use it to actually get through projectiles. It is also Chipp's main super of choice for wall breaking and also cashing out damage at the end of combos. This super will be used fairly often in a lot of cases where you cannot get damage any other way, so be sure to learn those situations in which you will have to use this super. Now that we've covered all his normals, specials, and supers, let's go ahead and talk about a basic strategy. Chipp's neutral game revolves around you taking advantage of Chipp's extended movement options to disrupt the harmony of your opponent's neutral game. What this entails is you picking and choosing your spots to disrupt standard neutral situations in the match that you're playing. By utilizing Chipp's movement speed, you can keep the opponent on their toes at all times. It is very important to have a good handle on controlling Chipp, as strong movement is your biggest lifeline no matter the matchup. One of the strongest points of Chipp is how versatile he is when shifting into different playstyles on the fly. His movement can be used defensively to create pressure situations / confusion, or defensively to create evasive situations that could potentially lead to a punish. Now that punish being either landing a hit or gaining positional advantage. As you progress as a Chipp player, your situational awareness will increase and you will be able to determine what playstyle to shift into given the situations at hand. Alright, and with that being said, what I want to go ahead and do now is highlight 5 different normals in which you can utilize to start your offense while playing as Chipp. Starting with 5K. 5K is really great, as mentioned before, because it gatlings into itself, and it's a great way to start and initiate pressure. Since it gatlings into 2K and 2D, it's great for starting pressure against your opponent, and it also has 2 built-in lows to start pressure. Great thing about 5K is that it's also jump cancelable, so you can start setting up different kinds of jump pressure when you attack your opponent. Next, we have Far Slash. Far Slash has a lot of range. One of the greatest things about this normal is it's one of the easiest normals you can combo Resho and Rokusai, and in the instance that they block, it's totally fine because both of those moves are safe on block. Next, we have 2S. 2S is a phenomenal starter because, as mentioned before, it can be whiff cancelled into 2H. Additionally, much like Far Slash, it can be used to go into the Resho series. The only downside to this normal is that the range on it is not nearly as far as Far Slash. But once again, keep in mind that the whiff cancel does help make it tricky to punish and or allows you to low profile in certain situations. Next up, we have 6P. 6P is a great normal to initiate pressure with because it does beat mid attacks. In addition to that, it also beats jumping attacks as well, right? So in knowing that, you can also approach with this to plow through those mid normals such as Kai's Far Slash or Ram's Far Slash as well. Keep in mind to buffer into Resho to make this move very safe because it is unsafe on block. A quick note on canceling into Resho is to be sure to roll half circle forward, flash, to complete the Resho motion. The reason being for this is to eliminate accidental beta blades that you may not want when trying to use this normal. Lastly, on our go-to poke list, is 2D. 2D has lots of range, pretty equivalent to Far Slash, and it is a low. Since it's 10 frame startup, it's pretty good for catching people running at you and or trying to escape your pressure. Don't forget to use the Retro series and or Alpha Blades to keep your opponent on their toes and to force them to change their block. Since 5K into 2D is a natural frame trap, you are granted a high counter state. Since you're granted the high counter state, you're actually allowed to sneak in certain combos and certain situational combos during this time. So be sure to mess around with this in training mode, as different ranges yield different results. The very last thing, and I think that this is by far the most important part about Chipp that I would like to stress very heavily. Your movement is your biggest lifeline, as I mentioned before. It's very wise for you guys to practice your movement in training mode and just get a good handle on Chipp, because his mobility is different from everyone else, and a single dash stop is just different for him because he covers different distances than other characters. So you want to have that much more control over the character. So something that I would like to tell you guys to do, and something that you should be drilling into your hands and drilling it into your execution, is to learn to use running into flawless defense cancel stop. It is a very important tool to know how to utilize because it gives you that much more control over Chipp. In Guilty Gear Strive, you can actually dash and block, but if you want to exert that much more control over your character, it is very wise to learn how to use flawless defense in order to cancel your run so you can stop your character in place to allow yourself better whiff punishes and or better favorable positional advantages. So be sure to practice this in training mode for your grounded movement. Don't forget to mess with your triple jumps as well. They offer you different types of heights, and they offer you different kinds of angles in which you can hit and strike your opponent. Don't forget to mess with run momentum, as it does affect your jumps as well. All in all, Chipp is a very well-rounded character in this game, blessed with a lot of options, lots of tools, lots of pressure options, lots of mix-up options, in general, just lots of options. Sometimes it can be overwhelming in choosing which is the right option given the situation. Keep in mind that experience is the best teacher, and there's no right or wrong. The idea is to get familiar with the scenarios and pick the best option that you choose for the situation at hand. Despite giving you the basic strategy here, your games will go different from what I'm telling you here. Once again, it's going to take a lot of experience, lots of patience, and I can't stress enough, lots and lots of patience to be able to play Chipp very well. But if you have the patience and you have the perseverance, you'll find yourself with one of the greatest characters in Guilty Gear Strive. Thank you guys for watching. If there's anything in which you'd like to see me cover regarding Chipp, or anything that you think that I might have missed, please be sure to leave it in the comments below. Once again, thank you guys for watching,